Hi guys and welcome to the circus. So today I'm going to show you my updated standard Nightmare Dolls deck. I'll leave my previous deck profile in the description box if you guys want to see that. In that list, you gave me plenty of critics. I really appreciated that so much. I learned a lot from your comments and please keep doing it. So today, I would like to showcase this to you before the new set comes out in a few days, because I would like to show you some of the progress I've made on deck building, some of my realizations, and maybe, just maybe, some of you guys wanted to play Nightmare Dolls before the set drops next month. Here is a deck list that I think is also pretty good. Of course, we are going to run our 4 Carols and 4 Alices. Of course, these 2 baby girls right here are the star of the deck. This is gonna be your primary engine that you really need to go off as soon as you hit grade 3. At least make use of that on-ride skill of Carol. And as I said before, everything else in this deck revolves around this engine. Next, I decided to run 3 copies of Comicality Chimeras. I just realized his worth in the deck last time I played a lot of games with this deck. It's just so good to countercharge, to scoop something. And that Soul Blast is not that big of a deal in some parts, but that +5 is really amazing. It just helps you get over defensives, and a counter charge is really amazing. I bumped him up to 3 because he is also a grade 3, meaning if you have a chance to re-ride but you don't have an Alice on board, but you have Comicality Chimera and an Amaranth Beast Tamer, you can still keep your engine going because Carol's skill works whenever you soul in a grade 3. It doesn't matter if it's not a Workroid, you just need to scoop in a grade 3. I didn't go beyond 3 copies because it's pretty bricky to have more copies of him, but I would like to see him more often, so I just bumped him up to 3. Moving on to the grade 2s, we still run 4 copies of Amaranth Beast Tamer. She is still amazing because she is a free soul returner on your board, a 12k attacker, and a 17k on an Axle Circle, which is pretty nice. But the most important part here is that she is so free of a soul returner. I still kept her at 4 because even though you have other units like a Comicality Chimera or an Alice on board, she is still pretty useful when pulling off your combo. By the way, the grade 2 lineup changed a lot aside from Amaranth Beast Tamer. And here are the spices that I brought into this deck. So I run 3 copies of Humorous Chimera. Maybe you haven't seen this card much being played, but I like playing him sometimes because he provides soul, he gains +5, and he can potentially call any card from soul. It costs discarding 1 card, but sometimes that's fine. Like if you have multiple copies of Comicality Chimera, you can use those copies as fodder for this card. I ran him here because sometimes I needed more soul. You know, from the soul blasting of Comicality Chimera and the soul blasting of Alice, sometimes your soul just runs out of juice. If you open up like 2 copies of him in hand, you can just use the other one as fodder for this skill. Otherwise, you can just discard anything that you don't need in your hand. Like for example, if you went second, you can discard a Quick Shield, etc, etc. That +5 helps a lot as well because it can help you get over defensives because, you know, Nightmare Dolls is getting shut down by defensives. Next, I would say this is the last spice of the deck, which is 3 copies of Silverthorn Rising Dragon. I realized that I sat on this card for a long time. This card is really amazing. I used to play this when I was still playing my super duper budget Dorian deck. If you want to see that deck profile, just comment down and I'll gladly show it to you. He is basically gonna be your beat stick that helps you get over defensives because on an Axle Circle, this unit is on a 24k body. That's pretty amazing on Nightmare Dolls because you rarely have units to get over defensives unless you checked a front. He is also really good early when you have like 2 copies of Carol in your hand and 1 copy of Alice, or you just happen to check an Alice on the top 5 cards when you rode Carol. If you have him in hand, you can just call him. If you have 2 counterblasts available, you can do a combo right there, and that combo gets over defensives. But it only works if you happen to have 2 Carols in hand because you need to ride up Carol next turn again to keep going with your engine. Maybe I'll do a little combo demonstration later. He is also a great target for Carol's skill when you don't have anything else to fetch or you happen to have multiple copies of Alice and Carol already in your hand or in your field and you want to fetch something that you can call using Alice. He is basically the best target for Alice to call. I decided to removed Jill because I realized that Jill is kinda holding the deck back, if that makes sense. Because you may think that Jill is a must in Nightmare Dolls, but sometimes when you take a look at it on another perspective, it doesn't really do much. Having her in the soul is really amazing, don't get me wrong. It opens up a lot of possibilities, but I would rather just have a beat stick on board than a unit that just scoops and then calls another booster at the back. Like for example, if you have Jill and an 8k booster, that's only 17. It won't do much if your opponent checks a defensive trigger. So, having him instead of Jill, I think is the way to go. At least in my experience. If you guys disagree with this opinion, please do leave your side in the comments. I would love to hear them. Moving on to the grade 1 lineup. This lineup didn't change much. Actually, it didn't change at all. It will change eventually when the set drops in a few days. So yeah, let's continue. We still run 2 purple trapezes because she is still amazing with Amaranth Beast Tamer, no doubt about it. She is basically an extender when you have her. Like for example, you don't have other ways to re-ride, but you have an Allison Soul, and your soul is ready for re-riding Carol. You have her and Amaranth Beast Tamer. You can just use Amaranth Beast Tamer right there, scoop your trapezes, call out your Alice, and do your combos. She is really clutch, basically. Sometimes you just gotta be careful on using her because sometimes you would pick between using her or Alice. Sometimes your soul doesn't have that much juice to work with her and your Alice at the same turn. Next, the best grade 1 in the deck, I believe it is Nightmare Doll Beverly. Why do I say that she is the best grade 1? It's because she is amazing behind Vanguard. She puts your Vanguard onto a 17k body every time you re-ride, meaning it gets over force and a magic number on Protect and Axel decks. She burns more hands when you're up against an Axel. She ensures that your opponent needs to guard more when you're facing against a force deck. I want to have her at 4 because I would really like to have her early. If I happen to have multiple copies of her, she's still a good booster on the other rears. If you happen to have a Alice, she puts your Alice onto 17, but in most cases, she just becomes more shield power or discard fodders for your Carol and your Humorous Chimera. Next, the best ride target of the deck, which is 4 copies of Brassy Bunny. Brassy Bunny is your best ride target on grade 1 because you get to filter out early, especially when you go second when you have Quick Shield, because Brassy Bunny discards a card and then draws a card. You can discard your Quick Shield and draw another card. Basically, it's a +1 in a sense. Plus, even though it's not on your grade 1 turn, on your grade 3 turn, you get to soul charge 2. Meaning, you can potentially fill up your soul with the units that you need. Like for example, if you soul charge another copy of Carol, if you happen to not get her on the top 5 cards of your deck, on your ride, Brassy Bunny can be clutch right there. You can also just put some Soul Blast fodders for your Comicality Chimeras and your Alice. Also shield power, and he's very cute. Finally, on the grade 1s, we run 2 copies of the Lewd Dancer Ethel. Like I said before in my previous deck profile, I would like to have more good ride targets on grade 1. I want to have more useful trigger lineup before we get the Crit Sentinel. And I still think that this is the way to go. I actually tried 8 fronts, 4 draws, and 4 heals. It was really nice, but sometimes it just lacks more offense in a way. Because chucking your front is cool, don't get me wrong. But sometimes your opponent just don't guard the Vanguard because he or she knows that you run only fronts and no crits. So, having your opponent know that you run crits can possibly burn more hand cards. I ran the grade 1 PGs because of her unride skill as well, because just having to filter out early really helps a lot. That's about it for the grade 1 lineup. Now we move on to the triggers. To finish the Sentinel lineup, we run 2 draw PGs because we still don't have the Crit Sentinel. Soon we will have one, I hope. Aside from the 2 draws, we run 4 crits, 4 heals, 4 heals, and 6 fronts, plus the starter. This is still the same on my previous deck profile because I still like this lineup. I still prefer running crits and fronts. Maybe you can go with 4 of each, 4 draws, 4 crits, 4 fronts, and 4 heals. I just like having more fronts, but still keeping the 4 crits. So 6 fronts is my way to go. This is just my own playstyle, so it's your choice if you want to copy mine. But take note that Nightmare Dolls will change a lot when the set comes out in a few days. If I happen to get myself the new set, I'll be more than happy to showcase my new deck recipes to you guys. For now, this is the way to go. So, leave your thoughts in the comments about this deck list of mine. I'll be more than happy to read those because it really helps me a lot. Even though it's positive or negative, it's still feedback, so it still helps me learn a lot about my clan. If you happen to try this out, please leave your stories in the comments. I would really like to read them. But if you happen to have any questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments still. I'll gladly answer them. And yeah, if you found this deck profile useful, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time.